Hello, advanced pre-algebra students. We are going to jump into a new chapter today. And in this chapter, we're going to do a lot of stuff with graphing and some other new things. But hopefully today, this graphing review is just that. It should just be a review today. We've got some vocabulary to talk about. We're going to talk about how we graph points, how we name ordered pairs, lots of different things that I'm hoping will just jog your memory. When we're graphing, we're going to use the coordinate plane, which is what you can see on the screen right here. It's this big grid. It's got the X and the Y axis. We're going to talk about those, and it splits it up into 4 sections. So the origin is actually this point right here. The ordered pair for the origin, we're going to talk about ordered pairs in a second, that's at 0, 0. It's the point where the x-axis and the y-axis cross. So that's kind of our starting point every time we're graphing, is we're going to start at the origin. And then we have the x-axis and the y-axis. The x-axis is this horizontal axis, and the y-axis is the vertical. Let's see if I can write this sideways for you. When you have these two, and plural is axes, when you have the x-axis and the y-axis together, they do split the coordinate plane up into 4 quadrants. The prefix quad means 4, so it's splitting it up into 4 parts. The way that we name these 4 parts, it's just with numbers. It's quadrants 1, 2, 3, and 4, but we do use Roman numerals. So you might have to refresh your memory on that. Quadrant 1, a lot of people want to put in the top left, like over here. But that's not where quadrant 1 is. It's where we usually start. Like if you start reading or writing, you're going to start at the top left. But quadrant 1, and again, Roman numerals, that's quadrant 1. The reason we use quadrant 1 there is because the x-axis and the y-axis are really just number lines. And on the right side of this number line, I would have positive numbers. Going to the left, I would have negative. On the y-axis, as I'm going up, those are going to be positive numbers also. So in quadrant 1, I have positive going this way and positive going this way. That's where we start with quadrant 1. Most of the time we watch students as they start graphing, they only use the first quadrant because we want them to be focusing on positive numbers. You guys are beyond that. We can graph with positive and negative numbers. Now, again, a lot of people, after they know that's quadrant 1, we like to go clockwise, the way a clock goes, but that's not how the quadrants go. Quadrant 2 is going to go counterclockwise. This is quadrant 2. It's where the x-axis is going to be negative, but the y-axis is still positive. Then quadrant 3, now we just keep going around. Quadrant 3 is right here. So we've got negative x's because we had to go left, and we have negative y's because we had to go down. And then the last quadrant is quadrant 4. Quadrant 4 is not this. When I see that as Roman numerals, it makes me want to cringe because that's not how we write 4. And I'll even tell you there's a whole bunch of fancy clocks with Roman numerals and they write their 4s wrong almost every time. Here is quadrant 4. In Roman numerals, V is 5. This is 1 before the V, so that's 4. So that's how we name our quadrants. Today, as you're doing some of your practice work, I'm going to ask things like, which quadrant is this point in? So you'd have to be able to find the point and then also be able to tell me which quadrant it's in. Speaking of points, we call the points that we're going to be graphing ordered pairs. The word ordered is right in there because the order really does matter. When we graph an ordered pair, the x comes first, the y comes second, and there's parentheses around the ordered pair. So when we're graphing a point, The two numbers that we give you, those are going to be directions for how to get to that location. It's really important that everybody does this in the same order so that everybody in the whole wide world knows that when I give you an ordered pair, you're going to go sideways first, and then you're going to go up and down because the X goes sideways and the Y goes up and down. When we're graphing a point, for instance, let's get this point right here. I'm going to call that point A. Points get capital letters. To get to that point, I moved 1, 2, 3, 4 to the left, which is a -4. And then I moved up 1, 2, 3, 4. I guess I should have picked a different point that didn't have the same numbers for both of those. But I want you to notice that the X was negative because I went left. The Y was positive because I went up 4. Now, what's going to help you, I think, later on when we are doing some other things with graphing also, I need you to remember how to get those ordered pairs graphed correctly, right? Here's what I've gotten from another teacher to remind you how to get to a point. When we're graphing points, I want you to walk to the elevator and then you ride the elevator. So imagine that the x-axis is the floor. If you were going to walk, I have so much stuff on my board right now. If you're going to walk, you're going to go sideways, either left or right. So we went to the left 4 and we ended up right here. And then we rode the elevator and we went up. So you have to go sideways first and then you have to go up and down. So on this graph, I want to be able to identify all of that stuff that we just talked about. I want to find a point that's on the x-axis. And I know that there's actually 2 points that are on the x-axis. Let's jump down to the very last one. The origin is point E. That origin was 0, 0, remember? That's point E. Then I'm going to say we're not going to use that one anymore because it is on the x-axis and it's on the y-axis. So when I ask for a point that's only on the x-axis, that would be point G, way over here. Remember, the x-axis is the horizontal axis. And again, ordered pairs get capital letters. The y-axis, that's the vertical axis, and we're going to ignore point E right now because that's the origin. That's going to be point D, right down here. Okay? In quadrant 1, remember, here's quadrant 1. The point that's in quadrant 1 is A. And quadrant 2, we're going to go counterclockwise. The point that's in quadrant 2 is going to be point B. Quadrant 3 is down here. That's point C. And quadrant 4, down here, remember 4 is IV, I already have it listed there. That's at 4, -5, that's point F. I think it wouldn't hurt for us to get these ordered pairs also, just to practice that. We just did letter F. Let's work our way backwards. Point C is at -6, so I go left 6. So I walk to the elevator, and then I'm going to ride the elevator down 4 floors. So I'm going to go left 6, down 4 floors. Point B, I was going to go left again, but only left 3. I know it's not numbered there. Left 3, up 1. So left is negative, up is positive. And then point A, I'm going to go to the right for this one. So that's going to be +5 and then up 3. Knowing where you have positives and where you have negatives really does help when you're trying to graph these points and when you're trying to identify which quadrant they're in. So we just found the ordered pairs from a graph. Now I want you to be able to, in theory, I know you don't have this on paper in front of you, but we should be able to graph these points. So for point A, -3, 2, again, remember this is going to go left 3, and then we're gonna go up 2, and the order matters. So I'm gonna go left 3. I'm gonna try to just kind of put some, I don't really wanna put points on there. I'm gonna have to go left 3 and up 2. Right here is point A. Right, I'm gonna erase this in a second, but I went left 3 because it's a -3, and then I went up 2 because it was a +2. So that's point A. Point B is at 0, 5. I'm going to tell you right now, when we put zeros into ordered pairs, a lot of students really struggle with where to find that point. I hope that you don't, but 0, 5, remember the first number is sideways. First number is the X part. I'm not moving sideways at all. So I don't go sideways, but I go up 5. Right there is point B. It's on the y-axis. Point C is at 4, -1, so +4, 4 to the right, and then down 1. Point C. Point D is at -5, 0. Again, throwing a 0 in there messes people up, but -5, that's the sideways part, so -5 is right here, and then I'm going to go up and down 0. That's point D. Point E is at +2, +3, so that's right 2, up 3. And point F is at -7, -4. So -7 is left 7, 6, 7, and then down 4. Okay, I hope that all made sense. Today, instead of having just regular practice problems that you are going to be writing down on paper or whatever, in Schoology, there's going to be a link to quizzes. Some of you may have seen this in the past, but if you haven't, it looks very similar to a Kahoot. So you're going to be able to go in, you have to type in a name, and then you take this quiz, kind of. Please don't make up a funny name, because I get a report for who did these and what scores you got. But if you make up a funny name, I don't know who to give credit to. So please make sure that you use your own name. It's about the coordinate plane, but the link that I gave you in Schoology will take you right there. Type in your name, you can take the quiz, and you can do it as many times as you need to if you want to get a perfect score on that. When you're done with that, just don't forget about the learning check in Schoology, and let me know if you need any help.